Mayor, we are live on YouTube.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. I think I was muted there before, but thank you for letting me know that we are now live. Welcome, everyone, members of council, city staff, our invited guests, and all of you out there who have joined us for the live stream. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that you can find a copy of tonight's agenda at simpsonville.com/meetings. That way you can follow along if you choose to do so. We're few minutes away from our invocation and the call to order at 6:30. So thank you for standing by while we wait for our meeting time to arrive. It's a long-standing tradition for City Council to have an invocation before each meeting. As always, we invite any member of the public to deliver an invocation that is consistent with your beliefs and appropriate for the solemn nature of this assembly. We don't have a volunteer tonight from the public to give the invocation. Is there a member of council or staff that will give the invocation for us? I don't see anyone volunteering. If you would please bow your heads and join me in a moment of prayer. Thank you, God, for bringing us together tonight to do the good work of the city of Simpsonville. Please look out over the council, look out over the staff members of our city, and especially our first responders and all the citizens of Simpsonville. In your name we pray. Amen. We have just a minute to go. Before we begin, I want to inform everyone that this will be our last virtual and our last live stream meeting under our current emergency ordinance. It expires this Saturday, the 27th. Beginning with our next meeting in April, I think that's the 13th, we'll be meeting face-to-face in council chambers at City Hall. We will be following social distancing and wearing masks at this meeting. Call to order the March 23rd, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting of Simpsonville City Council. City Clerk Long, please call the roll.
Councilmember Gooch.
Here.
Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Houlihan.
Here.
Councilmember Roche, Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember
Here.
Hutchins, Councilmember Hutchins,
Here.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk Long. Item 3 on the agenda is the Chamber of Commerce update. Allison McGarity, the President and CEO of the Simpsonville Chamber, is presenting. Ms. Garrity?
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I sent the update out from us on Friday, so hopefully you have that and can look at it as we go through. The first page of that update is our financial report for our Welcome Center funding. At this point, that report shows our full fiscal year 2020, which I think spans 2 of your fiscal years, but January to December of 2020. It shows some of the activities and just a summary of all of those expenses. And then going into the next couple of pages, it pretty much covers some general updates of what we've been doing so far for the first quarter of the year. It feels sometimes like we're off to a little bit of a slow start, but we have been working to just review everything from last year and get kind of a good handle on what we might be able to expect this year overall, and then get things moving along. Another big update that will help with that is included on page 2. So we are excited to be hiring very soon, which will hopefully get us back up to full staff, which for us is 2 full-time, 1 part-time, give or take. But bringing in a 3rd person will help us immensely, specifically because that person is going to be focused on our events. So that'll help us get more things on the calendar and things going from a more public perspective pretty soon. Then the next page is our recent new members, and then a couple of ribbon cutting photos that we've been doing recently. So all in all, I think we're pretty busy. We've gotten a lot of calls and visits from folks who are looking to move in, start new businesses, and potentially go into new commercial retail space around town. So starting to feel like normal again, and we're definitely looking forward to the rest of the year. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I don't see anybody raising their hand for questions. Thank you, Ms. McGarity. I appreciate the report much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is approval of the minutes for the Committee of the Whole meeting for February 23rd. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Councilmember Houlihan.
Mr. Mayor, I have a point of privilege. Councilmember Roche has sent me a message saying that she can't get into the meeting, that it says that it's waiting for you, so I don't know if you can check to see if there's some sort of request that would let her in.
Let me see if I don't see, it's unusual. I don't see a request in that way. You'll just bear with me just a moment. Yeah, nothing there. Anybody have any suggestions? Like I say, I'm not seeing anything on my end where I can she's not showing up as that. Can somebody resend her the link? Administrator Gracely's going to do that. We'll let her go do that, and we'll continue on. Hopefully she can join us in time for the business sections of our agenda tonight. So we were on the minutes. Were there any corrections to the minutes? I don't see anyone asking for attention on that item, so the minutes will stand approved as written. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is citizen comments. we have multiple public comments this evening. All of them are regarding item 7A on our agenda, the proposed annexation and rezoning on Stenhouse Road. And I'm going to go through these in the order that they were received. We'll start with Elizabeth McFarlane of 307 Hilburn Way. If you will bear with me just a moment while I call up this message.
Mayor Shoemaker. My name is Elizabeth McFarlane. I live in the Longleaf community. My address is 307 Hilburn Way. I'm calling to voice my opinion in regards to the townhouses that are being planned on Stonehouse in West Georgia between the neighborhood Walmart and our neighborhood. I wanted to call and express my concerns in regards to the traffic. It's already unsafe to turn out from our neighborhood, so I can only imagine how unsafe it would be to turn out from closer to the traffic light. Furthermore, the traffic lights don't even have the correct turning arrows as is, which creates a dangerous situation. Furthermore, there's no sidewalks, which creates an even more dangerous situation. I also am concerned about possible drainage issues. Our neighborhood is already experiencing severe drainage issues. So to have more construction being done so closely is concerning to myself and some of my neighbors. We understand that the area will likely be developed, but townhouses and rentals just bring another level of concern to us. So we hope you will take this into consideration during your meeting. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you, Ms. McFarland. Before we go on to the next comment, City Clerk Long, would you please note for the record that Councilmember Roche has joined the meeting?
I have, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next comment is from Lorene Hutchinson of 714 Troutdale Lane.
Hi, my name is Lorene Hutchinson, and I am a owner of a home in Longleaf Subdivision, 714 Troutdale Lane. And I was informed recently that the Simpsonville has discussed annexation between Walmart and Longleaf that is looking for rezoning, and a developer wants to build 117 townhomes that are going to be rentals in that location. And as a homeowner in the Longleaf subdivision, it will, directly impact home, not to mention directly impact the value of our properties when you bring in 117 rentals. I am okay if there are going to be townhomes that are being sold, but I'm not okay with rental properties given the fact that they will butt up against my home as I'm very close to the end of Troutdale, which would then have an influence. In terms of sound and, quality of the rental property, I'm not sure the quality of the homes they're going to be putting in. But again, I would be okay if these are going to be townhomes that are going to be sold and that there's owners, but when it's going to be rental, I'm just really very much against that consideration. So I would need to reconsider that planning. Thank you.
So thank you to Lorene Hutchinson. Our next comment, cue this up. Our next comment is from Stacy Rollins of 610 Troutdale Lane.
Yes, this is Stacy Rollins at 610 Troutdale Lane, a Longleaf subdivision resident. I just want to voice some concerns. What we're hearing is the plot of land between Walmart Neighborhood Market and our subdivision entrance, the prospect of townhomes being there. That's a tentative, I guess. But you guys really need to work on the infrastructure as far as traffic. You travel that lane coming from Georgia Road, traffic between 5 and 6 can back up all the way to Food Line. That intersection there needs some turn lanes, additional lanes to accommodate for that single traffic. And I also have concerns with that rental townhome. If you're going to build them, sell them. No rentals. That has been different from other people, which we don't feel is that's just not what we need. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that comment. At this point, I'm going to suspend the public comments. Under our council meeting ordinance, if a previous speaker has already expressed a shared view, speakers are encouraged to simply state that he or she agrees with the previous comment instead of repeating a comment that's already made. Also, as the presiding officer, the ordinance gives me the power to interrupt remarks at any time in the interest of expediting the orderly disposition of the business at hand. I am going to read the names and addresses and just summarize in a few words the additional comments that were received from residents of the city. They were substantially the same and are in agreement with the 3 previous comments I just played. On my list here, I have Mike Rollins at 610 Troutdale Lane. He was concerned about the infrastructure not supporting such a development and increase in traffic. Jeremy Shields of 406 Hillburn Way. He felt there was a lack of notice and is concerned about negative impact to home values, traffic, and noise. Barbara Simmons, 208 Redmont Court. She's opposed to it being rental property. She would prefer that it be single-family homes. She's concerned about the increased traffic and the impact to her property values. Brenda Razor of 508 Belgreen Avenue. She is also concerned about the increase in traffic and safety concerns. Tina McCoy of 614 Troutdale Lane. She says that the road that comes out of that her neighborhood feeds into, Stenhouse Road, is already a hazardous road and is concerned about the increase in traffic. And the final public comment was from Stephen Weeks of 305 Hillburn Way. He's opposed to it being rental properties and is concerned about the increase to traffic. In addition to these recorded messages, I also received multiple emails that agreed with the previous comments. And I believe after the deadline, there were a couple of more messages that were left. I have not had time to go back and listen to those, but we certainly had a lot of comments on this particular item. I thank everyone who submitted your comments. If your comment did not get played, it does not mean it has less value. It just means that it was a little repetitive of the other comments that were already played. Next on the agenda is our staff reports. For our monthly financial report, I will call on our Director of Finance, Christine Farino. Director Farino.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. A few highlights from the February financial report. February revenues were $3.1 million. Total revenues year to date are $13.2 million, which is 66% of the budget. February expenses were $1.3 million. Total expenses year to date were $11.9 million, 59% of the budget. Sewer fund revenues for February were $50,000. These are much lower because we did not receive the payment until the beginning of March. So March will reflect February's payment along with March's payment. Total revenues collected year to date were $1.5 million, which is 78% of the budget. Expenses for February were $25,000. Year to date expenses are $472,000, which is 44% of the budget. Hospitality and accommodation revenues for February were $201,000. Year to date revenues are $1.4 million, and that's 60% of the budget. February expenses were $401. Year to date expenses were $1.2 million, which is 57% of the budget. Our Public Works Enterprise Fund revenues for February were $258,000. Year to date collected was $1.3 million, which is 96% of the budget. There were 0 expenses for February, and year to date expenses are $40,000, which is 16% of the budget. I would be glad to answer any questions you have.
Are there any questions from council? Okay, hearing none, our next report is from our community relations specialist, Justin Campbell. Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'll start with our Simply Beautiful Cleanup Day. This is our biannual cleanup day that we did not get to have last year, but this year we're teaming up with Palmetto Pride again and Habitat for Humanity of Greenville County, which is sponsoring the event, and the Greenville County Initiative Keep Greenville County Beautiful to hold a citywide cleanup on April 10th. And coming on the heels of the impressive cleanup on I-385 by Public Works, I expect that this cleanup day will continue to help keep the city as litter-free as possible and show the city's continued commitment to a litter-free Simpsonville. I encourage council members who are able to attend to do so, as it is a rewarding experience. All dates are set for the third season of the Simpsonville Summer Music Series and Food Truck Rodeo, which will run every Wednesday, June through August, except for August 4th right now is a rain date. Featured at the concerts will be Mad Cuban and Tacos and Blah 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 food trucks, and I'm working to secure additional food trucks to have at least 3 and possibly 4 options at each concert, since we're expecting an even higher turnout than last year due to the trajectory of the pandemic. The first concert is an Elvis tribute on June 2nd. The Simpsonville Kiwanis Club voted this month to approve nearly $5,000 for improvements on the Swamp Rabbit Trail on South Main Street. They include 2 new bike stands and 2 new bike repair stations. Because of the donation, the city will recognize the club with some type of small signifier on the trail. When the improvements and signifier are installed, I hope to hold some type of small gathering to recognize the relationship between the city and Kiwanis Club. I believe Mr. Davis from Parks and Rec is coordinating with the club on recognition, and the city, I believe today, is in the process of creating an invoice for that donation. And finally, I'm just sort of recommending that the city solidify continued relationship with the Miss Simpsonville Teen franchise. Miss Simpsonville Teen is by definition representing the city of Simpsonville, and therefore remaining a supporter of that franchise is important to maintaining the city's image. Furthermore, Miss Simpsonville Teen always has a chance of winning Miss South Carolina Teen. And in terms of just community relations, sidling up to the winner of Miss South Carolina Teen after she wins the competition is not a great look. So the way to solidify that relationship is to just involve Miss Simpsonville Teen in events and functions when appropriate. Veterans Day and tree lighting ceremonies and our cleanup days, for example. In short, Miss Simpsonville Team is a de facto ambassador of the city, and it just makes sense to play a role in that ambassadorship. So it's not officially sponsored by the city, but just the very fact that she has Simpsonville in her title means that she's sort of some type of representative. I know that there doesn't need to be like an ordinance or anything for this, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Just an idea. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them or get the answer for you.
Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Campbell? I will just echo your comments. Justin and I have interacted with Ms. Vaughn on a fairly frequent basis since the tree lighting. Mm-hmm. She is smart and dedicated and hardworking, and supporting her is a very easy thing to do, and I like the idea of supporting Miss Simpsonville Teen going forward. Whoever that is after Grayson will have big shoes to fill. She's a smart young lady. Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, sir.
Next up is...
I was just saying yes, sir. Thank you.
Next up is Economic Development from our Planning and Economic Development Director, Jason Knudsen. Director Knudsen.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So our permits for the month of February were quite strong, so it's nice to see that so early in the year. An item of note from our site plan review progress is that Waterleaf and Ely Ferry, the phase 2, which came to council a few months back, has been approved. Is moving on to start construction pretty shortly here. For boards and commissions, the Planning Commission, 3 of the items there will be addressed by John Derby for his agenda items, and they are dealing with the annexations that we do have going on. So he'll give more detail about that. The fourth item that went to the commission was Waterleaf's master site plan approval, which gave us the ability to approve their final plans. And the Board of Zoning Appeals did not have any items on the agenda for this month. Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Knudsen. That concludes our staff reports. Council has received other department reports who are attending the council meeting with us tonight. Are there any comments or questions for the department heads who are with us? Okay, thank you very much. That brings us on to our business items that are on the agenda. I will point out that for those of you who are listening on the live stream, the passage of an item by council during our committee of the whole meeting is approval to add that item to the next business meeting of Simpsonville City Council. All right, so item 7A, AXC 2021-01, proposed annexation rezoning of the property at 215-231 Stenhouse Road. Planner John Derby, will you summarize for us, please? And I'm going to turn over control to you. You are now presenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Tonight's first item is the 2021-01. This is the annexation rezoning request. On the image in front of you, highlighted in green, is the location in question tonight. This is for 215 to 231. Currently, this location is zoned residential suburban in Greenville County. The applicant is looking to have this annexed to residential high density. The applicant is intended to develop this location as a townhome project. That will be a rental project that's provided earlier in the comments. Little location of the surrounding zoning. The south and east is the Longleaf subdivision in orange. To the west is the ID Walmart marketplace, and cross street is RS Greenville County. This is our extraterritorial land use map, part of our comp plan. And the location here in question is the brown asterisk area. It's actually designated as multifamily residential. Highlights in there, yellow as well as the neighborhood. At this time, I would like to address some of the comments that came in from citizens in the Longleaf subdivision. DOT has already started engineering some improvements along West Georgia Road, all the way from Rocky Creek to the intersection there at East Standing Springs and West Georgia Road. These improvements will be for widening of West Georgia Road, as well as adding turn lanes at the intersection of East Standing Springs and West Georgia Road, alleviating the kind of traffic issue that is currently at that location. I will go through some of the slides of the applicants. We were presented at our planning commission meeting some of the concept ideas of what they want to design at this location. And with that, I will let the applicant present a little more in detail of what they would like to design at this location.
John, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. My name is Paul Talbert. Just want to say thank you to the mayor, to council, and to staff tonight for your time and hearing our project. This again is the annexation of the property along Stenhouse Road. The developer has joined us tonight too, and I hope that he will share comments after a brief synopsis on my part. We definitely have heard the comments from the citizens, and I want to make sure that representing the developer, we intend to address as many as possible within the realm of our development. I know drainage is an issue from the neighbor's perspective, so we want to make sure that we're being forward thinking in how we're going to address those for the neighbors. But we do feel like, as you've seen some of the slides, the character images of the development, I feel like this will be a very good, high quality development. We'd love to be annexed into the city of Simpsonville. Obviously, that's why we're here before you tonight. Staff has made a recommendation for the Planning Commission back on March 2nd that it was that everybody was in favor of it, and feel like it's a good transition zoning. So you've got single family behind us, you've got the Walmart to the northwest, and then we would be right in between. And I think in other conversations with staff, we feel like this is, eventually this property will be developed, whether it's our development or not. So I know that there's a lot of traffic concerns, but I feel like that's just a part of growth that is bound to happen whenever you bring new development along. And I'm already very thankful to hear SCDOT is responding to that traffic request and wanting to address it along West Georgia Road. Certainly we'll have some units here. I believe that the projection right now is 120, and that's based on the number of units that are feasible per the zoning ordinance that we're trying to accomplish with the annexation. Again, I know there were some concerns about it being a rental quality, but I don't want to think of this as this is for people who want to get out of an apartment style and still have a high quality of life. So we're wanting to deliver a product that they would be proud of as well whenever they're renting. I believe that's about all that I have. And if John is okay with it, and the council and they are okay with it, I'd like to allow the developer to speak himself if he wants to.
Yes, that's fine. Mr. Augustine?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you, members of the council, city staff, everybody else on the call. We very much appreciate the time to be heard tonight. I won't restate anything Mr. Derby or Mr. Towler just said, but we are a development company based in Utah with offices in Florida. We do a lot of development all over the Southeast, and all of it, our expertise is in rental housing. So this isn't something we're looking to jump on and just sort of make good out of an opportunity. It is something that we've been doing over the last 20 years and have really fine-tuned our trade. We're excited about the opportunity to build a community in Simpsonville, and especially in this location at Stenhouse in West Georgia. It's rare that you find locations that are adjacent to such great amenities for what we hope to have great residents. But our main goal as a developer of rental communities is to really create a community. A lot of what we've done in the past has been higher density multifamily or stacked flat apartments ranging from gardens to high rise. But a big part of what we're doing now and going forward has been driven by data and demographics of renters, where there are a lot more of them now. And again, they're looking to move from traditional multifamily communities to more of a home that feels like a home in a community. And that's what we do really well is we work with top class property management companies and focus very heavily on design and operation. So again, our goal is to fit in as a great neighbor. Our design, we could send a follow-up of some of our most recent track record projects, but we're commended with awards and all types of accolades for just our focus on design and operations. So our goal in these deals is to be a great member of the community, a great community for the resident, and a great neighbor for our surrounding neighbors. And our track record speaks to that. And as stated, as we move forward, we're always happy to provide information, answer questions, etc. But to date, we're just grateful to have the time to be here tonight and to have worked with city staff leading up to tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Augustine. The motion is in order. Councilmember Houlihan.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna move that council approve AXZ-2021-01, the proposed annexation and rezoning of the property at 215 through 231 Stenhouse Road.
I have a motion from Councilmember Houlihan with a second from Councilmember Gooch to approve AXZ 2021-01, proposed annexation rezoning of property at 215 through 231 Stenhouse Road. Discussion? Councilmember Houlihan.
So I don't necessarily have a problem with rental properties. I've been a renter before, and I don't see that as an issue here, but I do see the traffic as an issue, the infrastructure as an issue. And as we all know, we don't have very much control over the street, the turning lanes, whether or not there are traffic lights. That all falls under the jurisdiction of SCDOT, who has been telling us for years now that they're going to do these road improvements out West Georgia Road, that they're going to widen the road, that they're going to add the turn lanes. And we keep getting told that, and we keep telling people that, and they keep hearing that, and we keep developing, and we keep agreeing to put more people out there and on the roads, and nothing changes to the roads and the intersections. And so the perception is that it's not being handled. My understanding is, from the latest thing I've said and I've seen, and I don't know if John or Jason could speak to this, but that it's on the SCDOT to-do list somewhere. It's projected maybe for mid-2024 to begin that work, and that work is based on a federal grant, so it is funded, and we know that it's going to be happening. I read that. I'm looking to see if anybody has any confirmation that that's true.
Administrator Gracely?
Ms. Houlihan and Mayor and Council, yes, if you recall, this was part of the federal earmark project, and the city was asked to participate financially. So I went to the County Transportation Committee and sought financial assistance from C funds, basically, to help pay the matching portion of this. The C Fund Committee did agree, and we have an intergovernmental agreement and a participation agreement, all have been executed and are in Columbia at DOT. We had hoped the project would start sooner because all the funding is in place, but apparently they have combined this project with other improvements along Georgia Road beyond where this is outside of the city, and it has slowed the process down. The let date of 2024 is a worst case scenario from what they've told me. They do have design professionals working on it now, and there is the potential it could be let out for bids sooner than that. But yes, 2024 is the date that they've given us as worst case scenario.
That's to say that you feel fairly confident that worst case scenario 2024, that road's getting widened, the turning lanes are getting put in there, and it's going to relieve that traffic congestion and the safety issues there.
Yes, so the project that we are participating in as part of the federal earmark includes having a 3-lane all the way on West Georgia Road to help with those left turning motions so that cars don't get stuck behind other vehicles making the left turn, and also adding right turn lanes at all of the roads intersecting with West Georgia. All of those, there are 3 intersection improvements that are part of this as well that should help traffic flow much more fluidly through there. It's about a $3 million road improvement project total. And as I said, all the funding is in place and it's being designed currently.
And then my other concern is the idea that the development's going to happen because we have a housing need, it's there. We know that we need the housing. It's currently zoned for residential suburban, I think, in the county, which is obviously much lower density and would appeal to people more now. But I guess my concern is, we've seen this happen again and again too, is that if we say, no, we don't want this high density residential here, the county, the developers leave and say, okay, and go back to the county, and the county rezones anyway for high density residential, and we end up with the problem that we were trying to avoid to begin with. And so I see Jason kind of nodding his head a little bit over there. And I'm just wondering if, based on what we know about what's happening with growth and development from the county angle, if we can expect that that's going to be the same sort of situation we find ourselves in here. Are we at risk of getting it one way or another?
Mr. Knudsen, do you want to comment?
Absolutely. So obviously we've been speculating on that, but further up west there was a road that did happen to us, right next to the Waterleaf subdivision, where I think it was even a service or industrial type of use. It was decided for kind of some similar reasons, not to go ahead with that annexation, and so the guy rezoned it. We had no say in any of the development standards, pedestrian traffic, sidewalks, landscaping guidelines, streetscaping, all of that was gone. They continue to use our infrastructure, but they do not pay into it through their property taxes. So by all means, that absolutely could come here. We as staff have already identified it, as John mentioned in the comp plan, that's an ideal place for multifamily because of the amenities being close by, being up against, kind of being a buffer between the single family and the commercial aspects there on West Georgia. And if we're identifying in that way, I can absolutely see the county identifying the same way.
So just to follow up on that, do you have a relationship with someone at the county where you have such conversations about speculations about what they may or may not be having their eyes on for a property that's abutting the city of Simpsonville?
So they don't necessarily have eyes on it, but, what would probably happen is if there was a denial, there'd be a conversation between the developer and the county. At that point, they'll start to identify and look closely. Usually when we do have something like this come up, I do get contacted. We have a little discussion about maybe some of our concerns and things like that. It doesn't happen often, but it could in this case. And we could reach out as well.
I would really like to do that because it's been a problem we've seen over and over again where we deny and then they just rezone it anyway and we end up with something like you said where we saw on West Georgia Road where they put in something we wouldn't have even wanted or have approved if we had just rezoned it ourselves and had some control over what was going to go there. And so I have a very real concern that if we deny this now, that's exactly what's going to happen. They'll turn around and go right back to the county and we'll end up with something worse than what we could have had. With that said, I'm also concerned about what we're actually looking at with this neighborhood. What specific standards we're looking for with this sort of development. Because if it's not in line with what we hope to see in our communities anyway, then we're in a no-win situation with this particular issue. So that's kind of where I stand. I would really like to have that conversation with the county because I think we need to be doing that every single time we get into these situations at this point so that we can at least know and let them know that we see you, we're looking at you, we know that this is a possibility. Could we not at least be working together on this instead of having these surprise developments pop up after the fact? And that would give me more confidence when voting on things like this.
Councilmember Roche.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Roche, your microphone's been muted.
I see it on my side. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. I feel very much the same as far as what Councilwoman Houlihan is saying about the situation with the county. This is becoming very repetitive on the outer edges, especially in Ward 4 at this point. And we need to do something with the relationship there with the county because it doesn't necessarily impact them the way that it does impact us. That said, I'm also looking at 117 rental units in the middle of a residential neighborhood where it's mostly single family homes. And I understand, from a developer's standpoint, that's great money. I also understand the developer is not from here. The developer can develop it here and not feel any of the consequences. The traffic, the decrease in property values. I'm a realtor, I understand that completely. And these citizens that already have existing homes do have a legitimate complaint. I've been a landlord for 10 years as well. And I can tell you that no one takes care of a home the way a homeowner does. For a homeowner, that's an investment. So people that have single family homes there are more than likely invested and taking great care of their property. Rentals, not so much. Renters, you know, it's a 50-50. You take a chance every time you rent something out. We're talking 117 of these. So just if each one has one car, that's 117 more cars traversing this short area. It will impact both West Georgia Road, and I believe it'll impact Neely Ferry on the other end. And there is no light there. It's hard to turn out there. I've tried to do it myself using Stenhouse to get to West Georgia Road from where I live. I don't see any positives for us here. I'm going to mention affordable housing as well. And I feel like when the developers are coming to us at this point where affordable housing is a real concern in this area, and we're constantly having to address that issue, I'd kind of like to know what the developers plan to charge as far as rent, what style, buildings they plan to build. Will they be available for short-term lease? I'm seeing more Airbnbs happening. These people sublet, that sort of thing. I just don't think it's a great idea right now to put that sort of burden on the existing homeowners. And when, 9 citizens tonight call in to say that, and multiple people email us and tell us ahead of time that they don't want this, I'm not sure what the county's going to do. I don't have control over that. I'm not sure that we do in general. I'd like to have more influence there, but I know our job is to represent the citizens that live there already, and so I'm not in favor of this at all at the moment. I'm not saying I couldn't change my mind if things were improved or I had more information, but it just seems like not a great situation for the people that live there already.
Thank you, council member. Any other members of council wish to speak? Councilmember Gooch.
Thank you. I do have, my biggest concern is that if we don't bring this into the city and get some control over it, the county will approve it, and they'll be able to do anything they want, and the standards will be lower than what we require. This has happened to us before, as stated earlier, and it will happen to us again at this location. If we, I have no opposition whatsoever to getting questions answered and maybe hearing back from developers some of the questions Mr. Shea asked, and probably some more. But if we don't do this, they're going to do it anyway. And then we lose total control over it. And these folks are going to be in a bad situation, irrespective of what we want, because the county is going to rubber stamp it. And again, their standards are not our standards. They're much lower than ours. And what they're proposing could change. It may even be higher. I don't know what the county currently has in that location, but they may wind up with more units. And I know it could be a pain to wait 3 more years, potentially, for the roads out there to be fixed. I drive those roads about once a day, and they are miserable. At 5 o'clock, you cannot get through there if you're trying to turn. But they are going to fix them. While I'm not in favor of it as far as the exact layout they've given us, I think this is first reading, correct me if I'm wrong. There's still time to get some questions answered on this. It goes to business meeting instead. We have time to get our questions answered. We still deny it. But if we deny it tonight, I don't mean any disrespect to the developers, but they're just going to go to the county. I mean, I would do the same thing if it were my money and my time and my potential to make this development happen. I would rather keep it under our umbrella and our control for the moment until we get some of these things figured out. And maybe we can work with the developer to get us some more information and maybe some more stipulations as to what we're looking for. If we say no, I'm sure the county is lined up ready. So that'd be my recommendation to say yes tonight and to work more towards getting some control over this. If we don't like it, we can always say no at the business meeting or beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Gooch. Any other council members wish to speak? Councilmember Hutchings.
I agree with what has been stated, I think, from most other council members this evening. The density concerns me with that traffic on that road. I travel that road myself pretty often, and I get backed up there trying to make a left turn now. And with that many units moving in there, that's going to be an issue, I'm sure, for a while anyway. Also, the rental aspect does concern me. I think that could have an impact on the surrounding property values. But it also concerns me that the county could basically come in and do this anyway, so we would not have any control at that point. So I am in agreement with others that we should hopefully be able to get some more information, move this down the road a little bit, and try to find out what we can do to make this a workable alternative.
Thank you, Councilmember Hutchings. Councilmember Kelly, I see you, but I saw Councilmember Roche first, so I'm going to turn over the floor to Councilmember.
I just had a question. I think Jason might be able to answer. I noticed that this is for annexation and rezoning. Do we have to do both of those at the same time? I'm not opposed to annexation. It's the rezoning that I'm worried about.
To answer that, yes, we do. The reason being, we do not have the same zoning classifications as the county. So if we annex it in, that property does need to receive proper zoning that does fit in with our regulations.
So we couldn't annex it and keep it zoned the way it is already?
No, because we have no standards for that piece of property. We do not have an RS designation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Roche. Councilmember Kelly?
If this gets green lighted and everything, when asking the developer, when do you think this project would be completed? As in, able for people to rent and move in?
Mr. Augustine or Mr. Talbot?
Yes. My best guess at this point would be fall of 2022.
So we're looking at probably 2 years then with the current traffic issues. Okay. Jason, I have one more question. Jason, do we regulate if we do I know we do on Main Street, and this is probably my ignorance and I should know this, as far as building materials and things of that nature, if we do can we tell them it's not going to be a vinyl siding community, but all that has to get approved, correct, John?
So, yeah, it would have to meet our standards, and this comes in as a commercial product, with it being a for rent product. So, they wouldn't be able to put certain materials up. They would need to use high class. But meeting with the developer, we've been talking with them for a while now. It's evident in the past projects they presented that they would be using high quality materials. They want to fit with the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kelly. Any other members of council wish to speak? Okay, I guess then I will go. I will just echo, I think everybody covered the things that I want to cover, both positive and negative, or at least, if not positive, at least for voting it through to the business meeting. I was also concerned about the development on it's called Baldwin Ridge up on Ely Ferry Road, just above Food Lion and Waterleaf. That's exactly what happened there. Council turned it down 3 years ago, and it went ahead anyway, and we don't get the tax revenue, we get no control, and as Mr. Knudsen pointed out, they enjoy living, for all practical purposes, in the city. But at the same time, I'm really concerned about traffic and adding to the pressure that already exists on Georgia Road. I know that the section, several of the commenters commented about how difficult it is to get through there. Councilmember Gooch talked about driving through there at 5 o'clock. But even just adding more people getting off of 385 South at Georgia Road. Right now, that's a real bottleneck in the evening. I understand that there are some possible changes coming there with another development that may be coming. But right now, as of the moment, adding any pressure to that, I think, is very much a concern. But I agree with Councilmember Gooch. I am going to vote to move this to the agenda of the business meeting. That would be first reading, and then the next business meeting would be second reading. So we'll have 2 more shots at this if we pass it tonight. And likewise, for anybody who's out there listening to the live stream or listening later to this meeting, that means you as well have 2 more shots to register comments. I tend to agree with the comments I've heard. I am very concerned about the amount of traffic and the safety on Stenhouse Road. Also with the density. I don't have a problem with the rental properties myself. I'm like Councilmember Houlihan. I've been a renter before, and maybe I was one of the people who took a little more pride in my rental property, but I also understand what Councilman Roche is saying, that that's not always the case. It's just, it can be a little different. I think I'm in favor of putting this through, but I do have concerns, and I want to hear more about what the developer and his proxies can do to allay those concerns if we're going to pass this during the next business meeting. With that, if there are no further comments, then I'm going to pass this on to a vote. So on the motion, AXC 2021-01, proposed annexation and rezoning of the property at 215 through 231 Stenhouse Road. Clerk Long, will you conduct a roll call vote for me?
Councilmember Gooch?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Houlihan?
Yes.
Councilmember Roche?
No.
Councilmember Cummings?
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchins?
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Clerk Long. For our next item, 7B, AXZ-2021-0, proposed annexation and rezoning of Morning Mist Farm, Phase 5. Mr. Derby, turning over control back to you, and if you would summarize for us, please. You are now the presenter.
Next item is the annexation and zoning request for Morning Mist Farms. On your screen in the green small area, 06. This area is requesting to be annexed into the city. The developer annexes property and has site plan approval of this location. On the last little bit that they needed to do was to punch into the county portion of Morning Mist. By doing that, they purchased a little small section here from the Morning Mist HOA. Currently right now it is RS in the county. I was contacted by E911 regarding this, that by having this small location here, staying in the county, there is a potential conflict for response time with first responders. This item did go before Planning Commission on March 2nd. There was no public comment. And the Planning Commission did recommend approval of 5-0. Answer the questions that council might have.
The motion is in order. Councilmember Hutchins.
Mayor and council, I make a motion to approve AXZ-2021-02, proposed annexation rezoning of Morning Mist Farm, Phase 5 entrance.
Second.
I'm sorry, who had the second?
Second.
Okay, so the motion by Councilmember Hutchings with a second by Jennifer Houlihan, Councilmember Houlihan, to approve AXC 202102, proposed annexation rezoning of Morning Mist Farm Phase 5 entrance. Discussion? All right, hearing none, seeing no one raising their hand, I do have one question. If I understand this correctly, this Phase 5, Mr. Derby, is inside the city limits, but the other portion of the neighborhood is in the county.
That is correct.
Okay. It's a little different. I don't see any concerns with that. It's just I was wanting to make sure I understood what that looked like. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, on the motion to approve AXC 2021-02, proposed annexation rezoning of Morning Mist Farm Phase 5 entrance. City Clerk Long, would you conduct a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gooch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Houlihan,
Yes.
Councilmember Roche,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Cummings,
I think we lost him.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Yes.
Has Mr. Cummings left the meeting?
I don't see his presence on the screen here anymore.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Clerk Long. Next item, 7C, AXZ 2021-03, proposed annexation rezoning of the property located on Stokes Road. Again, Mr. Derby, I'm going to hand over control to you, and if you will summarize. I should have a speed button for doing this for you. All right, you have control.
The last item I bring before you is an AXC 2021-03 annexation zoning of property on Stokes Road. The area highlighted in green is the property in question. This is directly across from the park subdivision. Currently, it's zoned RS for Greenville County. Built a small neighborhood. This location, they're requesting residential limited density at this spot, roughly 2.53 acres. This is the current zoning that surrounds this location as residential.
Thank you, Mr. Derby. A motion is in order. Councilmember Roche.
Mr. Mayor, I move that council approve 07 AXZ 2021-03, property on Stokes Road.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilmember Roche with a second by Councilmember Hutchings to approve AXZ 2021-03, proposed annexation rezoning of the property located on Stokes Road. Discussion? All right. Hearing none, City Clerk Long, would you conduct the roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gooch,
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Houlihan,
Yes.
Councilmember Roche,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Clerk Long. The next item on the agenda is 7D, the sanitation discussion. Administrator Gracely, will you summarize, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. As you all know, we have been discussing the end of the contract with ACE Environmental for about the last couple of years now. That was a 5-year agreement that the city entered into several years ago when it was apparent, I think, to council at that point that there were issues with the city, the age of the equipment, and this was a way to continue to provide curbside sanitation services without the additional capital costs to the city to continue to keep that in-house. When that happened, of course, as with anything that you use a third-party vendor for, the city gave up control of how we handle customer service. When it's not under our purview to control that because we're contracting with a third party, then we lose a lot of that. And I know you all have had some pain and some not so pleasant experience over the course of the last 4.5 years as a result of that, because you're getting complaints from citizens about missed pickups or other issues with maybe garbage being strewn about, and all you can do is call and we relay that to the third party vendor. And that is the case with any third party. Of course, with the city taking it back in-house, it gives us the ability to control customer service because the employees are city employees, and Mr. West and I can deal with that directly and hopefully deliver a better product to the citizens. I think that, you know, while there are always going to be issues now and again, you know, the city is in a position to respond more quickly because we're here, we're on site every day, where a third-party vendor is only here maybe 2 days a week, and they are at a disadvantage there because they're not on site to respond to those issues. As you recall, at the retreat, we looked at 3 options that were presented to you. Of course, no vote was taken, but one of the options was a very detailed report that Mr. West put together on not only the capital purchases to get back in the sanitation business here at the city, but also operating costs. And I think he presented a very thorough report that demonstrated that the cost outside of capital, the operating costs that we would continue moving forward in years 2, 3, 4, 5, and beyond, are very similar to what we were looking at in terms of costs from third parties. We did have 2 proposals, one from ACE Environmental, who is now Meridian Waste. They have sold out and changed the name. And then also the Greater Greenville Sanitation District provided a proposal. So what we are requesting this evening is that council move on to the business meeting for a vote, an official direction for us to proceed with sanitation, whether that is the city taking it back in-house, as Mr. West has proposed in this report that was given to you a couple weeks ago, or contracting with a third-party vendor again. And we did a couple of years ago when we looked at generating enough revenue to start an enterprise fund for sanitation. The reason we did that 2 years ago was so that we could save and have in reserve enough capital to purchase equipment so that we don't start this venture again in the red and end up in a situation like council found itself in several years ago where you can't afford to buy new equipment. So we do have money. You see the enterprise fund in all of your financial reports. You've seen in Mr. West's report the amount of capital it will take to buy the equipment that we need to proceed. And also, if that's the direction of council, that will be provided in a very detailed budget when we present the FY22 budget. So what we're looking for tonight is a direction on sanitation services for the city and which way you would like for us to proceed.
Thank you, Administrator Gracely. A motion is in order. Councilmember Houlihan.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to move that council accept Mr. West's proposal for sanitation services to be provided in-house by the city of Simpsonville.
Second. We have a motion from Councilmember Houlihan with a second from Councilmember Roche to accept the proposal by the Director of Public Works, Mr. West, to move sanitation back under the control of the city of Simpsonville. Discussion? Councilmember Houlihan?
We did what we had to do to get things cleaned up and into a position where we could offer fiscally sustainable, high-quality sanitation services to the city of Simpsonville through our own city public works department. It was always our hope that we would be able to do that. At least it was mine when we had the discussions about outsourcing to begin with, was we had to fix the problem that was there so that we could be in a fiscally sustainable situation where we could make it work again. In reviewing after this time, those three proposals that we had at retreat, I think the clear winner overall is the proposal from our own public works department. It's the financially better proposal. It's the better use of money, and it provides the quality of service that we were looking to get back to. And so I don't think there's, for me, any question that this is the appropriate proposal to accept and that this is the direction we need to be moving forward with.
Thank you, Councilmember Houlihan. Other members of council? Councilmember Roche.
I echo again what Ms. Houlihan said, and I would add that the city is currently pulling double duty in a lot of ways. We're paying ACE, but then we are having to send the city out to collect everything ACE allows to blow all over the streets, collect missed cans, pick up and if we're going to do it, we might as well do it all. And not pay another contractor. I think control over the quality of service, the frequency of service, all of those things are just going to be drastically improved. And I believe overall it's what the citizens have demanded. No one, I have yet to get a single compliment on ACE Environmental Services for as long as we've had them. So everyone in my ward that I have spoken to is absolutely looking forward to September and having solid service, good service, clean service, and being done with the contract. So I'm in favor of Wes's recommendation as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Roche. Anybody else? Councilmember Gooch.
Thank you. And I don't want to continue to repeat what everybody else has said, but I am looking forward to having this brought in-house. We did have to do what we did in order to get by, and it worked well enough to get us through, but we can do this much better in-house as we have done in the past. We can actually do it in a way that is less expensive than what we're currently paying. We're actually going to save the taxpayers dollars, and it's going to be a much improved level of service. All I would say is to those who have been waiting for this patiently, me included, please be patient with us as we transition in this process. We will have hiccups, but we will make sure that we cover those hiccups much better than they have been with the current service. And I'm looking forward to seeing us do this in-house again.
Thank you, Councilmember Gooch. Councilmember Hutchings.
I just want to say that I believe that this is certainly, from what I can tell, the will of the people to bring this back into the city. And so several of us made a pledge to do that when we were elected to office. And I feel good about this. I think that we will be able to offer a much higher level of service, a more reliable service, and do it in a cost-effective way. And I'm very much in support of this.
Councilmember Hutchings. Any other comments? So I will add that I am also in support of making this move. I agree that it is the correct thing to do, and just echo the other comments that were made. I do have one concern that keeps coming up. I know I've asked city staff about this, and they assure me it won't be a problem, but I'm going to ask it as a matter of public record. I've heard from Steve Serafino before with ACE, now known as Meridian, and I heard it again last week from Steve Coles at the Greater Greenville Sanitation District, that the lead time on these trucks is very, very long. And in fact, Steve Coles said that they had just ordered a truck and it was out past September, their lead time on getting that truck. Administrator Gracely, can you discuss this concern, please?
Public Works Director Andy West and I discussed this several months ago, and knowing that the direction that council was moving in a couple of years ago when we proposed the Public Works fee increase, basically to build the capital that we needed to start this enterprise fund to fund sanitation on its own. We just a few months ago issued a letter of intent to a manufacturer to purchase the trucks. Those trucks are depicted in your report that you were given at the retreat. They are 3 side loaders and 1 rear loader. The rear loader being to get in the areas where we don't have as much room. The streets are more narrow, alleyways in the central business district, that type thing. We have been assured, and I'll have Mr. West chime in as well, that all of those trucks are on schedule to be delivered no later than the end of July. We would hire the staff in the month of July and then spend the month of August training them on the use of those trucks. Mr. West already has a plan for that as well, to move some cans out to Heritage Park and let the new drivers, the new employees go out there and work with both the side and rear loader trucks and train and be ready to have those new trucks service the citizens of Simpsonville beginning September 1st.
Yeah, as Administrator Grayson said, they are well ahead of schedule. It's usually about a 12-month build out, but they were about 6 weeks ahead of schedule last we heard, and they could be delivered in June, even though I said, well, let's wait, until July. So we were well aware of the lead times, and we knew that if we waited till this point, that we would be in a pretty bad situation. And just kind of, everybody has been talking about this in Public Works 2 years, and so we kind of knew this may be the way we were going. And so we always had a plan. We've had 2 years to really figure it out and get something that works. So the trucks will not be an issue as far as getting them here on time to do the training and ready for ramp up. So that's taken care of.
Thank you. You've addressed my concerns. Well done as always, both of you. Thank you. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, thank you. So on the motion to move sanitation back under the control of the city of Simpsonville, City Clerk Long, will you conduct a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Booth,
A resounding yes.
Councilmember Kelly,
Absolutely.
Councilmember Houlihan,
Yes.
Councilmember Roche,
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchings,
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. For the next item, 7E, curbside recycling. Administrator Gracely, will you summarize, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. Mr. West and I have been concerned about this issue for quite some time. Some of you are aware and have been aware for a while because I've had individual discussions with you. Of course, all of you were made aware at the retreat when we had the discussion regarding curbside recycling. Since December of 2019, rather than Pratt paying us for recyclables that were dropped off at their location that have been collected curbside at Simpsonville, they have been charging us for that. Initially, they started out at $25 a ton for those materials. They ramped that up a couple months later to $45 a ton, and we have been at $65 a ton for over a year now. On average, we're spending in excess of $5,000 a month to pay them to take the recyclables. As you know, several years ago, plastic was discontinued as a recyclable material. Only certain plastics are allowed. Of course, aluminum seems to be the only commodity that really holds its value. And then paper and corrugated cardboard as well to do okay. But what we have discovered is it is not only financially inefficient to provide curbside recycling, but it also, running those trucks, around the city 4 days a week, which is what we would be doing when we take it back in-house, and paying the cost of the fuel and the wear and tear on the vehicles, and also the operating expense for employees to drive those recycling trucks. It's just, there's a carbon footprint associated with that, so any gain that you get from the recyclable materials that actually do make it out of Pratt to a market, we're losing in terms of fossil fuels and other detrimental impacts on the environment. So it is for both environmental and financial reasons that we are recommending that the city begin taking over the sanitation in September, that we discontinue curbside recycling. Those would be 2 more trucks we would have to purchase, 2 more employees that we would have to have on staff. And then, of course, you know, if we have issues with sick leave or annual leave, that would be another truck that would have to have someone fill in to keep the route current. Again, as I mentioned, the current tonnage rate that we're paying Pratt Industries is $65 a ton. The current tonnage rate that we're paying at the county landfill to dispose of waste is $16 a ton, just to give you an idea of the difference there. So 5 times more for recycling, and unfortunately, a lot of that product, because it's not recycled properly, it's not put in the bins properly, is not making it to the market anyway. It's going right back into the landfill. So our recommendation to council is that we discontinue curbside recycling. It is part of ACE's current contract, and that's why we've not brought this to you sooner. This has been an issue and a concern of ours, like I said, since December of 2019, when we had to start paying Pratt to take the recycling material. But now that we are looking at purchasing very expensive equipment in order to collect sanitation, and if we were to collect recycling, that's just a greater capital expense that we would have to come up with. So we do have a plan to provide information to our citizens, because we want to encourage them to continue to recycle. As you know, there's a drop-off point at City Park that the county operates. There's also one at Brookwood, and then there are county manned convenience centers off Hips Road and off Anderson Ridge Road that could service this area too, because there's no odor or issue with keeping recyclables around for an extended period. We believe that the folks who feel very strongly about recycling could collect those over a couple-week period and then visit one of these locations to put them in the collection center. With that, I'll leave it and we can answer any questions that you have.
Motion is in order. Councilmember Kelly?
Sorry, mute. You think I get used to this. I make a motion to move, I guess, the curbside recycling to our business meeting discussion.
Do we have a second?
Point of order.
Okay.
Point of order is that we cannot have, there's not a motion for a discussion. We have to have a motion for an action, either to approve or disapprove the discussed action.
Okay. Thank you. Your point of order is well taken. Councilmember Kelly?
I make a motion to approve the curbside recycling as advised by Administrator Grayson.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kelly with a second by Councilmember Gooch to approve the curbside recycling proposal by City Administrator Gracely. Discussion? Councilmember Houlihan.
This hurts me. Like, it physically causes me pain. Because I really do believe in recycling. I think that it's incredibly important that as good citizens of our community and of the world, we should be actively engaged in doing it. When I moved to Simpsonville, I was utterly thrilled to pay my chunk of money to get the giant green recycling cart so I could put all the things in it. But I recognize that we're in a situation where, as much as I would love to continue to be able to offer the service, it is not effective in the way that we have it now. It's financially a problem, and it's environmentally not the wonderful thing that I and probably everyone else thought that it was. If we're sending stuff to the recycling facility and we're paying extra to have it recycled, and then it's just ending up in the landfill anyway because it's not appropriately being sorted and put into the giant green bins, then we're really not doing any sort of service to our community. So as much as it pains me to say it, I think that we have to discontinue the curbside recycling. But I do think that we certainly need a very robust communication strategy for that, getting the word out to citizens, and we need to do everything that we possibly can from the city side to help encourage people to appropriately recycle recyclable materials. So educating people about the places that they can go do that, anything that we can do to help facilitate getting recycling to where it needs to go in order for them to do that, I think is incredibly important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Houlihan. Councilmember Kelly?
If I remember right, I think I don't remember how long ago it was when we first started recycling. We had these like red bins. And it wasn't very big. It wasn't a card like we have now, like big trash cans, basically. But it was a red bin. Is that something that we could look into possibly doing, that we could, for citizens that want to continue to recycle? So I know that we'll have places, that we can communicate to the public, this is where you would take it. But is there a way we could do something like that we can at least offer them a container of sorts that they can take and, take their stuff? Whether it's a fee or not, I mean, you have to pay for a trash can. I mean, like Jen said, she had to pay for, had to pay for the green card. So is that something we could look into possibly, at least giving them a way to carry that there instead of like, I don't know, what do you do with it? Because we recycle everything we possibly can too, but I don't know how I'm not putting that in my back seat. That makes sense.
Administrator Gracely?
Yes, Councilmember Kelly and Mayor, members of council. I think a really well thought out public information campaign is going to be very important for this. The benefit is that if you all approve this next month, it gives us plenty of lead time to make those announcements to the public, to give them the alternatives, to get feedback from them on what they might like to see. As you all know, we do have the aluminum can drop-off trailers at all of the fire stations. So once Station 6 is open, which is going to be very soon, hopefully by the end of next month, then that will be 6 different locations for aluminum cans. And we do see a huge benefit from that. And we'd like to share that with the community. I know Mr. Campbell's done a story before about the proceeds from those aluminum cans going to the Children's Burn Center, and actually helping defray the cost for families who have suffered burns and house fires or other fires. And so that is an example of recycling really working the way it was intended to. So that is a great location for people if they want to. Maybe people who have not recycled before through this public campaign, we can at least get them to start saving those cans and taking them to their neighborhood fire station. And we could certainly look at offering bins that people could collect their recyclables in and then have a sticker on there that tells where the locations are for them to take their recyclables. And it would need to be a small bin that they could fit in their car, certainly not a roll cart. And then, there's some expense there, but I think that would be money well spent as opposed to wear and tear on 2 new recycling trucks and of course paying Pratt $65 a ton to take materials. Maybe out of 10 tons, you get 2 tons that are actual recyclable materials, which is why the industry standard now has, the market has caused that price to go up and up, where we went from them paying us to us having to pay them an exorbitant amount of money to take it. So yes, there are things that I think we can do in the interim during that period while we're still doing the curbside through the end of August to get that message out to people and let them know. And there are other communities that have gone to this as well that have eliminated curbside recycling, and we can certainly reach out to them and see what strategies they employed when they did that. So, we're not alone in that, and I dare say we won't be the last to discontinue it. It just is not very cost effective any longer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Gracely. Councilmember Roche?
Just a couple of quick points, and I don't mean to sound crass when I say this, but I've gotten several calls from residents saying that ACE is picking their recycling can up and dumping it right into the trash truck and hauling it off. I don't know where ACE takes theirs, if maybe they're incurring a cost, but I feel like this has probably been happening more than not. And just kind of going under the radar unless, it gets caught by someone and the video gets sent. So, it's a great idea, and I know we recycle tons. Our recycling container is usually more full than our garbage container. But the points that you've made about the environmental impact and the carbon footprint for running the trucks, plus the money that it takes to hire those employees, and then pay to recycle, it makes no fiscal sense whatsoever to keep doing it. When recycling becomes a burden and, we lose the environmental benefit, then we're just doing something that makes us feel good. And, I'm all for bringing in some sort of a dumpster where we can collectively collect it like we used to at the lots parking lot. There used to be one there. But then it gets full and people leave it all over the ground, and now we have a litter issue. So now we've created another environmental issue. And we can chase this all day long, but I'm not sure that we will ever get anywhere. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe we shouldn't put out a feeler to citizens that might want to take this on and come up with some viable options on their own so that the city can back away from this and those that want to participate still can. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Roche. Councilmember Hutchings.
I just want to say that I feel Council Member Houlihan's pain with this discontinuing this program. I feel the same way. I was very excited about being able to recycle and try to do that as much as possible over the years, but I don't think we really effectively are recycling anymore with the items not being separated properly and going into the regular trash. So as I have said before, I think, and as others have mentioned, if we get a public information campaign going and we tell people how to do this more effectively, I think we'll actually be doing more good than what we're doing now.
Thank you, Councilmember Hutchings. Any other comments or questions from council? And I will just chime in and say it also causes me pain. I have been recycling since I was a Cub Scout, and I remember collecting glass and bringing it to a central location and loading tractor trailers with glass very early on in the recycling effort. And now there is nobody who will even process glass in the Southeast. So we're not allowed to recycle glass anymore. I've investigated what happens with our non-segregated curbside recycling, and it at one time was hand sorted. They have moved to automation, which is less effective than hand sorting, trying to get these recycling streams straightened out. They really don't want this unsorted recycling, and the automation is ineffective, and that's why 80% of it ends up going to the landfill anyway, but we still pay $65 a ton to send it there. So I think that it's a good idea to discontinue curbside recycling. If we have the satellite collection sites, those are segregated and it sorts it into streams that have value for a recycling company. Strictly corrugated cardboard, or strictly plastic #1, or aluminum, it has a higher value than it does with our curbside thing, so I'm in support of this as well. Okay, so on the motion to approve the proposal by our city administrator on curbside recycling, City Clerk Long, please conduct a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Gooch?
Yes.
Councilmember Kelly?
Yes.
Councilmember Houlihan?
Yes.
Councilmember Roche?
Yes.
Councilmember Hutchins?
Yes.
Mayor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Clerk Long. Next item, 7F, 1 and 2. These are in regards to a bond ordinance that have to do with H&A tax and revenue bonds. Administrator Gracely, would you please summarize for us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and members of council. We have been joined by our bond counsel, who is Brad Love with Painsford Sanford Boyd. Brad is a very, very capable bond attorney who I've worked with multiple times over my career, and I'm happy that he is joining us on this project. He has provided the bond ordinances that you have in your council packet. For the first discussion here, there are 2 ordinances. One is a general bond ordinance, basically to establish how bonds are issued. There is an existing general ordinance that was adopted many, many years ago, and it was recommended by our financial advisor that we adopt a new general bond ordinance that gives us an opportunity to revise some of the provisions of the old ordinance to make it more timely. There are a few things that have changed. Also, it eliminates the bonds test because we do have some bond refunding that we're going to be doing with this one. There's still some outstanding debt in hospitality and accommodations tax revenue bonds from work that was done on Heritage Park that we're going to be refunding as part of this first supplemental bond. And then also, because COVID, as you know, our collections for hospitality and accommodations tax revenues were off in 2020. And this eliminates the burden of having to try to explain why those revenue streams were lower. So this is basically a new bond ordinance, so we're starting fresh again. So we would need council to adopt